This video covers how to handle payments where customers pay you in full for your product or service at the time of the sale, such as a plumber that performs work and collects on the spot. QuickBooks considers this type of sale as a cash sale, even if the customer pays you by check or credit card. And there are two ways to handle cash sales. You can create a sales receipt for every sale, or you can create one sales receipt at the end of the day to summarize your cash sales. To follow along, open the landworks_payments file or just watch the video. First, I'll show you how to create a sales receipt and later how to create a summary sales receipt. So click Create Sales Receipts on the home page. For an invoice, QuickBooks enters the transactions to your accounts receivable account. For a sales receipt, on the other hand, QuickBooks adds the sale to your undeposited funds account. Because you don't need to track the customer's balance, the transaction is considered as cash. So let's say the landscape company does occasional work for a customer and expects to be paid that day. He gives a handwritten receipt to the customer, receives the customer's payment, and later enters the transaction into QuickBooks. So choose the customer, and we'll choose Susie. And for the class, let's choose Garden Maintenance. And the Deposit To menu appears here because we set that preference so that we could choose which account to deposit to, but we'll leave it at undeposited funds. Check the date in the date column. It is showing the last date of the month because that's what we selected in a previous video. But that was just for illustration purposes, so let's just choose whatever today's date is. So if the customer is paying by check, you could enter the check number here. And choose the payment method. We'll leave it as check. And we'll go to the line item area, which is where you enter the items the customer is purchasing. The line item area is also where you apply discounts and enter subtotals. So let's click here in the item column and choose Landscape Labor. In the quantity field, type the number of hours, and this took 5 hours, and press Tab. The video on creating an invoice shows how to use subtotals and discounts, so I won't go into that here. We'll just go ahead and save and close the sales receipt. Now, I'll show you how to create the sales summary receipt. For example, if you're making cash sales out of your mobile gluten-free cupcake truck, you probably don't care about tracking your customers, and they probably don't need printed receipts. In these types of businesses, you can summarize your sales at the end of the day. On the sales receipt, choosing a customer is optional if you don't want to track the individual customers. Instead, you can create a generic customer called Cash Customer. This way, you can still create customer reports. So let's open the Customer Center and go to New Customer and Job and click New Customer. For the customer name, let's type something creative like Cash Customer. And that's all we need. So click OK. At the end of the day, you would open up a sales receipt form. And since we're here in the Customer Center, select the Cash Customer and go to New Transactions and choose Sales Receipts. For this example, since the company isn't really a store or a cash-based business, we'll have to pretend that this company decided to sell off last year's fountains and fountain accessories. So on a Saturday, they held a yard sale. So let's choose a class, and we'll choose Product Sales. And let's change the date to, let's say, the second Saturday of whatever month you're in. And we'll leave the rest of the form up here as it is. Just go ahead and click in the item column. So we'll choose the items that were sold during the day and enter the total quantity sold that day. So we'll choose the solar fountain, and the quantity sold was 30, and press Tab. Let's choose another item, fountain lights, and the quantity sold was 53, press Tab. And they also sold some fountain pumps, and they sold 26 of those. So after entering the items, you enter the payment amounts. And the company decided to take only cash and checks that day. And we already have a payment type for checks, so let's go ahead and add that. Click in the item column and choose the payment item for checks. And here, QuickBooks kindly informs you that you don't need to use a payment item unless you are splitting the total among payment types, which we are. So go ahead and click OK. And for this sales receipt, let's change the description to payment by check, since it wasn't really a down payment. And click in the amount column, and we'll type the total amount of all the checks we received. $6,489 and 24 cents. And since we don't have a payment item for cash, we can create it here on the fly. So click in the item column, click Add New, and choose Payment as the type. And the name, we could type Payment with Cash. And we can copy that and use the same description. Payment method is cash. Let's go ahead and click OK. And here's that friendly reminder, again, about not having to use the payment item unless we're splitting the total, which we are. So click OK. And click in the amount column and type the amount of cash received, which was $4,075 and 61 cents. So that worked out well. So let's click Save and Close.